Welcome to an example in which we're finding the average rate of change of this function on this interval. How are we going to do this? Well, let me refer you first off to the exam number 1 notes. So here we are, the exam number 1 notes, which is at the top of Unit 1 module. Average rate of change, go to that section. Here's an example. I'm giving you an example for this one in particular. Here's the heart of the matter. The average rate of change is a slope, basically. And notice, look at the little f's here. It's f of the second value minus f of the first value over second value minus first value. It's a slope. It's basically a slope. A rate of change, to help you remember this, you think about what a rate is for just a minute. If I said, hey, what's my rate of A's in my class? Well, I probably have about 5 A's per every 40 students that take my class. Maybe that's an average, etc. I just want to point out a rate is one thing over the other, right? One kind of quantity, like A's over students, or if you're driving your car, miles per hour, or how many papers per day I can grade, or whatever. It's always one thing over the other. A rate means how fast one thing changes over the change in another thing. How many A's per 40 students. Okay, so when they say find the rate of change of this function, what they mean is they want, on this interval, they're saying this is the first x value and this is the second x value. Notice they want to find out how much does this function change between this x value and that x value. That's the same thing as a slope. It's basically rate of change. Rate of change, you should think of slope. It's the same thing as slope. And what is slope? I don't know if you remember, if that's helpful at all. Slope, if you remember from your algebra days, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You remember that slope formula? Anyway, you don't have to use that because what are the y values? It's going to end up being g of x2. y2 is g of x2. y1 is g of x1 over x2 minus x1. This is really what we're going to use. If this doesn't make sense, you can forget. I thought it might help, though. That's the slope. It's the same thing. This is the slope formula we used back in algebra. It's the same thing. It just, instead of calling y2, we're using g, because we're using a function. Remember, function values are y values. That'll be helpful to you in the rest of all of algebra and moving into calculus. Function values are y values. When we talk about a function value, we mean the y value. That's what the function is. You can replace g with y. You can write y equals this. It's the same thing. So when I say the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, the y, what is y2? It's g of x2. And what is y1? G of x1. That's what I'm saying here. Whoop, not here. Here, when I give you the formula. See, I'm calling it f, but g, same thing. F of second x value minus f of first, right? x2, x1 over x2 minus x1. Same thing. So, okay. So, let's do it then. So, so we'll come over here. And let's make a big bar here. So, I'm going to say, okay. G of x2. What is x2? Well, we know this is going to be g of, this is x1 and x2, right? So g of 3 minus g of negative 1 over 3 minus negative 1. That's good so far. And so the question is then, what is g of 3? Well, you got to take this whole function and plug in 3, don't you? G of 3 is going to be, oops, I'm in the wrong mode there. 4 times 3 squared plus 8 over 3 cubed minus, and then we got to plug in negative 1. So this is g of 3 so far, right? I just plugged 3 in right there and right there. That's what g of 3. So remember, whatever you put in the parentheses of the function, that's going in the x spot, which means it goes in the x spots in the function. And now let's plug in negative 1. So that'll be 4 times negative 1 squared plus 8 over negative 1 cubed. That's that whole thing Make that more generally true. There we go. That whole thing is g of negative 1. So we have g of 3 minus g of negative 1 over 3 minus negative 1. Right? I see that? So I'm just simply following this formula, which says g of 3 minus g of negative 1, the two x values, subtract, the g of the first x value minus g of the second over the first minus the second. Okay, so now we got to do some algebra here. So let's work this out. So, coming on down, what is this all going to equal? So, let me do the bar here. Looks like we have 4 times, just use your calculator, 4 times 9, that'd be 36, plus, do they want a decimal on this one? What do they want? I think a decimal would probably be fine on this one. So this is going to be 8 divided by 27 minus, and let me see here. I'm actually looking to see if they'll take a decimal or not here on number 2. What kind of answer do they want? They want to, I don't know if they'll take a fraction or they will not take a fraction. Let me try that real quick. They'll take a decimal. Yeah, they'll take a decimal or a fraction. Okay, so you could just do a decimal on this one. So this will be 4 minus 8. This is 3 plus 1. Did you track with all those steps there? So this is, right here, this becomes minus 8, doesn't it? 8 divided by negative 1. And this, of course, is 4. This is 36, and this is 8 over 27. All right. And then we keep going. This is, just use your calculator. You can just go to decimals now. So I'm just going to use my calculator. 36 plus, so I'm going to go 36 plus 8. Well, here, I'll just go 36 plus 8 27ths minus, and then this is what? Minus 4, 4 minus 8, over 4 on the bottom. Okay, and so we're almost there. That's going to be 36 plus 8 over 27 plus 4 over 4, right? The double negative thing becomes plus 4. And so that's 40 plus 8 over 20. So I just did 36 and 4 over 4. Okay, so at this point I would just use my calculator. How do you do it in your calculator? Well, you always have to put parentheses around the numerator or denominator if there's more than one thing up there. So you go parenthesis 40. So on your calculator, 40 plus 8 divided by 27, parenthesis, divided by 4, hit equals or enter or whatever. Does that make sense what I did? Whenever you do something on your calculator, when you have more than one item in the numerator or denominator, you got to parenthesize that numerator or that denominator. So I had to put parentheses. That way I tell the calculator all this is the numerator. If you don't do that, it'll get confused. If you don't put these parentheses in right here, it'll only divide this part by the 4. It won't know that the whole numerator is divided by the 4. So you got to put in these parentheses, and that way you tell it the whole thing is divided by 4, not just that last part. And so if you hit the buttons on your calculator, let me see. I get the answer 10.07407. And I wonder if they'll let you round it. Let me see. Yeah, they'll let you round 07407. So that's enough accuracy. You could type that in. It actually goes on 407, another 407. That's the full answer. But you just type in. It doesn't say how many, but I just checked it on the computer, and it took in 2 decimal places. So 2 decimal places, it'll give you the right answer. So, yeah, so that is correct. So that's how we do that. So again, a rate of change is a slope, which means it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It's the difference of g values over the 2 values. And then you just calculate that out.